Hey guys, how you doing? Luna here with a new video for the channel. How you doing today? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to yet another review. This time it's a turn for Canadian singer-songwriting Rae Jepsen. Why the fuck do I look so bright? I mean, I know I'm white, but damn. We're talking about The Loneliest Time. This is the sixth studio album by this wonderful, talented woman. I was really excited to listen to this album. I really wanted to know how this album would sound like because of, the promotional singles like Beach House, Western Wind, The Loneliest Time. It seemed like, again, Carly wasn't going for anything that deep. She was just trying to make a feel-good album that, you can casually enjoy, and that's exactly what she delivered. This album is filled by synth pop, dance pop tunes. Her delivery is also really good, although sometimes vocal processing can be a really big problem on this album, especially in the most laid back or slower tunes, because in the dance pop tunes it's pretty much okay. That's what you're waiting for. You're not looking for such a raw performance. But in the tracks that are supposed to be more emotional or slower or pretty much like a ballad, and you find quite a few on this album like Far Away or Go Find Yourself or whatever, you want a different type of performance, more raw and less produced. One of the main problems in this album as well, it's even though this high notes that Carly can reach easily because of the tone of her voice can be quite annoying. Carly, many times in this album, she may end up sounding like Alvin and the Chipmunks covers that you'll find in 2009 singing Justin Bieber's Baby. Another thing that may be a problem, depends on how you look at it, is that this album doesn't really have any interesting going on for it. This is basically, again, just a feel-good album. So anyone looking for a more interesting or complex or more layers, let's say, you're not gonna find them in this album. There's not that much to explore, let's say. Let me give you an example. The latest Brian Eno album, Forever and Never No More, it's an album that has a lot of layers that you can kind of pay attention to and discover new sounds behind the sounds that you already heard. And you don't really have to go as far as ambient music or Brian Eno to have that feeling. You also have the latest Taylor Swift album, which, even though it's a really disjointed one, it is indeed a concept album that has a narrative to follow through. Instead, here it's pretty much obvious that the songwriting process wasn't really based on a concept or anything specific. Another thing that I have to say about this album is that the opening tracks here, pretty much the thing that makes the album an enjoyable listen is the amount of chemistry the whole band or the whole instrumental, say, because most of the things here are obviously digital placed in. There wasn't a band behind it. Have a lot of chemistry, and they get along well with each other, and thus allowing every single element in the song to shine through. Instead, in the opening tracks of this album, like Surrender My Heart, for example, the instrumentation is more plastic and less enjoyable. This is a problem until the track Beach House, which, it's more bass driven. You can kind of tell that the performance is better as well. And ever since that song, the problem of the tracks being, having a lack of chemistry isn't really a problem anymore. It's fixed, especially because a track that comes almost immediately after it's So Nice is one of the best songs on the fucking album. I mean, the bass-driven nature of the track is so enjoyable. The melody, it's so nice. It's such a nice flowing track, and that's good for the whole album. This is filled with nice summer tunes you just can't get out of your head even after you listen to the album. Yeah, I sort of feel guilty every time that I enjoy this type of album so much because I've heard just such a great amount of music, especially albums like Brian Eno's album, albums that have such an interesting and thought-provoking concept, like, for example, The End of the World, a post-apocalyptic, scenario, climate change, and all of these different things. You have drones, ambient music, you have electronic music. You have such an interesting concept and such an interesting lineup for the instrumentals that I feel guilty enjoying this type of songs just as much and even more because of how simple they are. And this is not to say that the tracks don't really have their own mojo, because they totally do. For example, the track Western Wind features some really nice and hypnotic synths that sound almost like echoed bells. Really nice track, one of the best tracks on the album. There's this disco, 80s kind of disco vibe in the whole track, especially the most bass-driven songs that make for such a groovy atmosphere. Actually, it's the slower songs that kind of break the pace of the album. We're also talking about 16 tracks here. I think that this album could have, left off a few tracks, like the intro tracks, for example. I wouldn't have a problem with that, because again, this slower tunes without that much of bass and disco vibe going around don't really do that much for me, are totally skippable tracks. But overall, you know, the 42 minutes that the album lasts are 42 enjoyable, fun, catchy minutes that I really can't get out of my head. The second track of this album is far superior than the first half. You find songs, for example, like my favorite song on the entire album, The Loneliest Time. I think that the feature with Rufus is amazing. The chemistry of those two is excellent. Carly absolutely kills it in this track as well. This is the most 80s disco type of track you'll find in the entire album. The production with those, so the strings that were so characteristic of the 80s is so nice, really. An amazing song. Also, in the second half of this album, you can find some of the most annoying songs that Carly has ever put out. For example, in the track Shooting Star. Remember the thing I said about Carly sounding like Alvin and the Chipmunks cover from 2009 on YouTube? Yeah, it's because of this. It's because of this track. She sounds so robotic, but not like robotic in the Kraftwerk kind of robotic, no. Annoyingly robotic. She sounds like she's not human. It's almost like a song that comes out of a simulation. It's almost like I tell Alexa, show me the least human song possible performed by a human, and this song would come out. Like, no. But pretty much, I really enjoyed this album. I know that maybe this review will be shorter than the rest, but it's just not much to say about this one because, again, it's just dance pop, synth pop tunes performed really well, and that's pretty much all I needed. You know, I don't really want anything else from Carly. That's like asking, I don't know, Freddie Mercury to sing a rap song. You don't really want that, don't you? So that's the same case here. I don't really want Carly to do some complex shit. I don't want her to be the next Bjork. I just want her to do this type of tunes for me to kind of save on my playlist and play when I'm, in the mood for it. I know that she has done, works that can be more complex and more interesting with more layers, let's say. And I appreciate that. I love innovation. I love albums that try to be groundbreaking or at least try to do something new. But I also love this type of feel-good dance groovy albums that she drops from time to time. This is just a nice album with a lot of catchy tunes that stay in my head, and if they do, it's because they're doing something right. So I'm totally confident in giving this album the rating that I'm about to give it, and that is a 7. That is it for today's video, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other videos that I upload. Leave a comment down below. I would like to know your opinion on this album. I know that some people may say that this album doesn't deserve such a high rating. It's a really basic album. It has nothing, it doesn't have that many special things going on for it, but you know what? It's a great album. I think it's nice, I think it's listenable, I think it's enjoyable, and I think it's just really groovy, and it gets me in a mood that I can be relaxed, but, dancing at the same time, and I really appreciate it. That being said, guys, once again, I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that I can see you guys soon with a new video. But until then, bye.